troubles and too much sin. Test will occur. Running a race we will never win without the word.
Good morning, good day, good evening, good overnight, whenever you happen to be listening to this. Welcome once again to Just Thoughts. Misled sheep. So what we're going to be talking about today, this is not going to be a Bible study. This is going to be yet another commentary about the times that are befalling us. I don't think it's too hard to see what's going on or where we're at in prophecy. I think I'll subtitle this Coronavirus Antichrist. Now, don't misunderstand me. In saying that, I am not implying that the coronavirus is the Antichrist. No, far from it. Satan is the Antichrist, as we know is written in our Father's Word. However, the coronavirus is so far the greatest deception that has been perpetrated on the earth in modern times. So, how very like the deception of Satan's disguise when he comes as Christ this is. Because people are bowing down to this virus in the same way that people will most assuredly fall and bow to the deception of Satan when he comes as the Antichrist. Only they bow not to worship the virus, no. Yet, they are still wholly seduced and deceived by the fear of it, by the fear of catching it. So much so till they're willing to give up their rights and freedoms, to have their constitution, their ways of lives, their livelihoods stripped from them. But that is what happens when coverage of an event like this is on the TV and on the internet, on every social media website, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for weeks on end, and actually now months on end. Atheists, agnostics, people of other nations and religions, including Christianity, are falling for this global deception. Now, I have been posting videos and information on my Facebook page, Just Thoughts at Facebook, with regards to what is actually going on in the United States and in the rest of the world. And I must say that I do not believe the media, nor the politicians, nor even our esteemed president. I have stated a number of times that I voted for Trump as a measure of the lesser of two evils. In other words, when I voted for Trump, it was to keep Hillary Clinton out of office. But I have also said that I believed that Trump was a globalist. I believe his name, Trump, has significance. And I've also said that it matters not who is in control of the presidency or the Congress or the Senate. According to our Father's Word, we are going into global government. Our economy is being crushed on purpose. And the purpose is global domination for the purpose of one world government. The lockdowns are increasing, state after state. In other words, instead of doing it all at once, people would have been up in arms, they're doing it state by state, community by community. You no longer have constitutional rights in the United States of America because they have been suspended. Christians are being arrested for coming together to pray or to worship. The mayor of New York said, if any churches open their doors for service, I will shut you down permanently. Now that is a quote. Communist-style rule is now in place in the United States. You must now show papers to police officers and or any source of law enforcement to make sure that you are an essential worker and have permission from the government to be on the streets after curfew. There are a few states that are still open, naturally, because it hasn't taken full effect yet. But people are being locked in their houses and curfewed, and all of it over a damned lie. The coronavirus hype and fear is a lie. The numbers of infected people are being inflated to look much worse than they really are. How do I know this? Because it has been proven that the coronavirus has many strains, and that most human beings have some form of coronavirus in their DNA genome. And thusly, virtually anyone can be diagnosed as infected with COVID-19 or the coronavirus. You know, there was an odd thing about the name corona. It is Latin for crown. The actual definition from a number of dictionaries, the Merriam-Webster, as well as the Cambridge and others, the definition is actually corona, from coronae or coronus, meaning crown. Definition A, a circle of light that can sometimes be seen around the moon at night or around the sun during an eclipse. Now we all know what an eclipse is. That's when the moon, the lunar, stands before the solar and blocks out the light of it so that the moon becomes a predominant feature. I want you to think about that with regards to Satan being of the lunar. In other words, the moon is that which reflects the light of the sun. But it is not the sun. It is an example of Satan. At a time when the moon is positioned exactly between the sun and the earth, the corona, also called sometimes the crown of the head, is seen. In botany, corona refers to a cup shape or a trumpet-shaped outgrowth in the center of such plants as the daffodil or narcissus flower. It certainly seems like the coronavirus, specifically COVID-19, is the crowning achievement for the New World Order as put in place by the Federal Reserve, which is to say the Kenites, and the centrally owned banks owned by the Federal Reserve in other countries. These, of course, are all connected, just as the global economy is now all connected, just as the internet has addicted people and connected them all together. And now no country can stand on its own, and people can't do without their addictions. Meanwhile, as far as where we are in timeline, people are making all kinds of predictions. Rumors of civil war are being posted. President Trump is threatening Iran, and of course, Iran is threatening right back. Antifa is promising mass violence in the streets, and so on, and so on, and so on. And Christians, even some of the Shepherd's Chapel community, are setting dates for the beginning of the tribulation or the end of the world, while others are being overtaken by the hysteria over the coronavirus because of what they're seeing on TV. In my opinion, it is easy to see how the majority of the world will be putty in the hands of Satan when he comes as the Antichrist. Since so many people are being taken in by the coronavirus hoax agenda, then it is easy to see how that when Satan comes, having all of his powers, the powers of an archangel, even though he's a fallen archangel, they're going to be putty in his hands. Now, some people are telling me this is no hoax, it's real, it's engineered, it's what have you. It's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's not. But most of the evidence seems to point to the contrary. And what evidence is that, you ask? Well, every time something happens in this world, it is captured on a smartphone or even a cell phone or even a handheld camcorder. Even back in 1980 when Mount St. Helens erupted, there were people who captured the landslide and explosion of the mountain with old cameras. But now, in the modern times, in today's technology, virtually everyone has a smartphone or a handheld camcorder of some sort. Every time there is a tornado, or a hurricane, or a flood, or a fire, or any big event, even a terrorist action or some other crap, it shows up on social media or it shows up on the mainstream media. So, where are all the videos and posts showing the masses of people dying? Where are all the videos of lines of people wanting to be checked for coronavirus or even being sick? Well, there don't seem to be any, at least for the moment. Now, I'm quite sure that actors are being hired for the next phase, which will no doubt come at some point. But for now, where are the videos? You know, I have friends all over this nation. I have people that I talk to, and no one at all seems to know anyone personally who is sick with the coronavirus, despite the media's continued coverage of how quickly this virus is supposedly spreading. And others who are apparently sick, that is to say, seem to have simple colds or normal influenza, are no doubt being lumped into the sum of those that are dying of the coronavirus. The videos that I'm seeing on social media seem to show the exact opposite of what the mainstream media is telling us. They show hospitals that look normal. They show hospital lobbies that are for the most part empty, like you would expect a normal hospital lobby to be. They show test areas with no one standing in line, empty tents, which have been set up to test people but are unmanned. That is to say, there are no doctors, no nurses, no healthcare providers, nor even EMTs on duty to test people. That tells me what I have long suspected, that all of this is a hoax to cover up the truth about the failing economy, which was already in free fall, failing due to being overinflative, to quantitative easing, which means printing money without any precious metals or any reserves to back it up. And the hyperinflated economy, which is causing it to fail, has nothing to do with the coronavirus, but it is using the coronavirus to say that this is the reason that the economy is failing. When in fact, the economy for years has been being designed to fail, and people have been noticing it. And it is being designed to fail by the elite, by the Fed, by the centralized banks. You know them as the children of Cain. You see, deception is Satan's method of operation. And it is the operation of his very own offspring, the aforementioned Kenites. We now live, because of this deception, in a police state. An American version of the old USSR, which is to say Soviet Russia. Governors are locking down their states, and people are not working, which is and will further result in a mass collapse of our economy. And for what? For a hoax pandemic, which is a big show put on for the masses, which has yet to kill enough people to even reach the heights of the influenza virus in a very bad year? How like the beasts of Revelation 13 this is. And I guess it should be, because it is the events of Revelation 13 beginning to come to pass for real. And people are afraid. Afraid to live normally, afraid to speak out. Afraid because the government has told them if they do not comply, they will face stiff fines and jail time, even as much as years in prison. How long will it be before freedom of speech is cut completely? To where if you say anything against the agenda, they come after you. And how do they threaten to throw all of these Americans in jail? How does this happen when our prison system, according to the government statistics, is overcrowded to the point that they're having to let even career criminals out early on parole and put them back onto the streets? How does that happen? Doesn't something smell very raunchy about this whole situation to you? Why is it only certain groups are being targeted? In other words, small private businesses or private business owners, schools, restaurants that do not have drive-thrus, in other words, that are not fast food. In other words, the people that are depending the most on their businesses to help them survive and make ends meet. And of course, private citizens who are not deemed essential are the ones being picked on. They're the ones being made to stay at home. And why are they being made to stay at home? Is there something going on out there they don't want us to see? You know, I mentioned this on a post not too long ago. In the movie Close Encounters, which takes place at Devil's Tower, Wyoming, by the way, as well as other places, but in order to have a meeting place for the aliens, which I'm not saying anything, don't start taking me as one of these crazy nuts that believes in aliens, okay? If there's any aliens out there, they are angelic beings using the craft of the heavenly realm. But regardless, in the movie Close Encounters, they needed to clear out an entire portion of the state. So they conveniently had a train wreck and said that there was toxic gas released. And they killed a whole lot of cattle. And the army came in and gave people gas masks and shuffled them off to other places. And did all kinds of tests on them, when it was all a hoax to cover up what was really happening, which in the science fiction movie was that aliens were coming for a first contact. It appears to me, and it should appear to you, I mean, the evidence is right in front of you. Are you awake? This is a deception. I mean, why do you think that most, and I said yes, most, of the people who are diagnosed with COVID-19 are not even getting sick? It is because most all of the population, according to science, has some form of coronavirus in their systems. So, bingo, they test positive. Yet, as it is with many diseases or viruses, many people have small amounts of diseases or viruses in their systems. Yet they do not get sick. Why? Because their bodies have built up immunity to these things. Or because their bodies have not been overwhelmed with enough of these diseases or viruses to make them sick. Therefore, they're quite well. I mean, look at all the NBA players, or all the people that were on spring break who now have coronavirus, according to the media. Look at all the actors in Hollywood and politicians who have tested positive for the COVID-19 coronavirus. And of course, quarantined themselves because they've tested positive. Yet few, if any, have gotten sick. You know, Tom Hanks, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson, I think it is, and Prince Charles, just to name a few, have all been diagnosed with this disease, and they've all voluntarily put themselves up into quarantine. But not one of them yet has gotten sick. Tom Hanks is now out of quarantine and back in the United States. And this is the case with many people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. That they're suffering minor symptoms at best. So I guess my question is, are these actors, these politicians, these people of importance, are they acting as though they have coronavirus to help push this narrative or agenda? Or do they have only small trace amounts, as most people do, and are not getting sick because the trace amounts have not beaten their immune systems or have not overwhelmed their immune systems to where they can get sick? It is my understanding from listening to many doctors speaking over the past few days, well, actually longer than that, over the past few weeks, that these trace amounts will in fact not go away in 14 days, that people that contract the virus will be sick for roughly 14 days before they can get well again. But these small trace amounts will remain with a person for a very long time, perhaps even all of their lives after it's contracted or after they're exposed to a small amount of it. Yet everyone from TV to movie stars to local news media and streaming media are quarantining themselves and doing their shows from home. That smells like agenda to me. It is clear that the normal influenza virus can kill both young and old because they have complications from poor immune systems or they have other health issues. Yet people act as though millions are dying in the streets because of this damn virus. Most of the elderly who contract this so-called virus, even normal influenza, were probably going to die anyway, according to a think tank of physicians. According to a number of physicians who aren't even associated with each other. Yet most of these physicians will say this one time and even put it on social media or speak it on television, but they will not keep vocalizing their opinion for fear of being disgraced by their peers or by their fellow colleagues, or because they will have government grants cut from them in their research. It makes one wonder, does it not? Anyway, this is my thoughts on what is going on right now. In my mind, this is one huge hoax. Are people dying? Yes, there are people dying every day. Are some of them being labeled as coronavirus statistics? More than likely. I mean, after all, if the Federal Reserve can inflate our economy to the point it collapses, we know the media and how well the media can be trusted, that they will inflate numbers, and how many times they have inflated things in the past. I mean, look how many lies they've been caught in. You know, CBS has had to apologize now for airing footage of Palermo, Italy, as New York. I guess they couldn't really get any footage of New York, because all the footage I've seen of New York and other places like Germany and Great Britain, I've even posted a video with a couple of clips in it called the hoax pandemic or something like that, the coronavirus COVID-19 hoax pandemic, on Just Thoughts Facebook channel. But Where is all the proof? All we're hearing and seeing is numbers and projections. And projections are made how? Well, by statistics. And as I have said in the past couple of studies or lectures, it looks like to me that about every 2 years something new creeps up. Whether it's H1N1 or the swine flu or Ebola or any number of other things. Any number of viruses, you know. The West Nile virus, the Zika virus. You can just go on and on. Every few years there's something else. And yet they seem to disappear as fast as they come. And people forget. But then again, America is Manasseh in the Bible. And people here do quickly forget. I'll tell you this. I have learned a lot of lessons about this. I have spoken of the importance of voting and that people should get out and vote their conscience and their mind. And I still support that. However, now I'm fairly sure that it's not going to matter who you vote for. I mean, if we have Trump, the man, the legend, the great conservative, the guy who was going to drain the swamp, neck deep in this lie, and speaking this nonsense, and understanding that he comes from old money, and that he no doubt knows what the Federal Reserve is, and he's depending on them to save us, when in fact what is all that's going to happen is they're going to buy up everything and own everything. Yeah. I think I may just have to sit the next vote out. I really hate to say that, you know. I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But, you know, our own state governor now is locking down the state. He's taking away rights. He's threatening people that defy his power as governor. And all for what? For our peace and safety and our peace of mind. And when I go on social media, I'm looking at how many people are talking about just stay at home. Just do this, just do that. Yeah, just stay at home while your business falls to pieces. Just stay at home while your rights are being removed from you. Don't dare to wander out on the streets where the KGB can get a hold of you and ask to see your papers. You know, that's the kind of shit that happened in Nazi Germany. Excuse my foul language. That's the kind of stuff that happened in Russia, the USSR of old. That's the kind of things that happen in every communist and full socialist nation. And we knew that this was building, but a month ago this was not the case. Now it is. Now we are under totalitarian, authoritarian rule. And one had better comply with this rule or face jail time or huge hefty fines. How are people supposed to pay these fines when they can't work? Unemployment now is at the highest that it has ever been in the United States of America. And no doubt the same is true in 90% of the nations around the world that have an infrastructure where people can actually work and are not just hunter-gatherers or farmers or what have you that eat their own food. Yeah, there's a famine in the land right now. I keep seeing people say, where are all the red-blooded Americans in the home of the free and the brave? Well, they're hiding. But we are to obey the law. That is what Christ told us to do. Obey the law. So we're obeying the law and we're staying home. Wonder what would happen if we didn't, if everybody just went out in the street and started doing whatever they wanted to again. In other words, went back to work, started up their businesses. Could they arrest them all, I wonder? Probably not. But no doubt they would be put down with some kind of military action. Americans in uniform against Americans, for the most part, unarmed. Though some are armed. Do I think there's going to be a revolt or a civil war like people are saying? No, not really. I think what is going to happen is this is going to continue on the path that it was set to. I think our Father's Word is going to come to pass and that we're going into global government. I think our Constitution is going to be stripped away from us and replaced with a new one. I think there will be the deadly wound and then the coming of the Antichrist and then the tribulation at his coming. And then the return of the true Christ at the appointed time of the seventh trump. So these are my thoughts on the matter. Let remind you as always, study your Father's Word to show yourself approved. Use the tools afforded to us to study the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, the J.P. Green's Interlinear, the E.W. Bullinger Companion Bible, the Smith's Bible Dictionary, and of course the good old accurate King James, that is to say, the most accurate of all Bibles. And brothers and sisters, as always, remember to pray for those that walk in darkness. Because right now there is a darkness over the land, just like an eclipse, with a crowning achievement, all right. The coronavirus. The biggest deception yet. One that happened 10 years ago with the swine flu. And again, a few years later with the H1N1. And has been happening over and over and over again. They've been testing the waters and pushing the envelope to see how far they can push people before people rebel. And finally, I think they have gotten people to be placid little sheep, misled, who will do nothing, and who will allow them to just completely rule over them. And be delivered up to the slaughter, perhaps, who knows. I don't really think that'll be the case, but I mean, you could say that, and I'm just going to throw this out there because we're on the subject, that when this coronavirus thing finally passes and becomes a thing of yesterday, like the bird flu did, or like the swine flu did, that perhaps things will go back to looking normal. And I say looking normal because they very well will not be normal. But they might go back to looking normal. They might keep the illusion of freedom for a little while longer. But whatever happens, remember, as I said, God has your back. It's not even you that has to do anything. Your body has to be there when you're delivered up before the Antichrist. But it's God who's going to do battle for you. It is the Holy Spirit that shall utter from you and dispel all the lies and darkness of Satan and his cronies, such as these who are building this one world government. So with that said, until we see you again, by the way, happy Passover to you all. And may God bless you, and thank you for listening. This has been Just Thoughts.